Black Myth Wukong is coming up next week, August 19th, 2024. I'll be there at the second the game is available. But I saw out of nowhere that we got a benchmark tool today. So I said, okay, let's check it out. So you can scroll down and you can find this over here, this news. Benchmark tool is now available. I love when developers put benchmark tools. I think it's less than 10 gigabytes. So you can check out if the game actually runs properly. I'm doing this on the Steam Deck, but after that we're doing the ROG Ally, so let's get into it right away. So the first thing that you'll see, which is a good thing, is shader compilation, so let's wait it out. Once that finishes, we'll get into the game. I wish every game did this before launching. Alright, so options menu, we're doing 800p, weak motion blur. You can also turn it off if you want to. I'm going to keep it on weak because I'm not expecting 60s. There's TSR, FSR, and XeSS. If you're using TSR or FSR, there's actually frame generation, which is awesome to see. 66% super resolution. This means that we're on FSR quality, to say it in some way. FSR quality is around 66.6% resolution. But I'm doing that with TSR, that usually looks better. No ray tracing. And when it comes to the graphics, I'm going to lower post-process, shadows, visual effect, global illumination, vegetation, hair as well, and reflection. Let's keep it on medium textures, medium anti-aliasing, and BeCreatus, and the rest on low. Remember, we're playing an Unreal Engine 5 game, so apply the changes and let's get into it right away. Guys, so we're going into the benchmark tool now. I only changed one thing. I put shadows on medium because the shadow draw distance was pretty poor. Okay, and now the shadow draw distance is significantly better. Of course, medium shadows is way more demanding than low shadows. But again, the shadows were just, well, they're still kind of being generated in front of us. But again, we're playing a new Unreal Engine 5 game on the Steam Deck, so yeah, props to the developers first of all for releasing this before the game comes out. It's awesome, that means that they are confident on their product. But at the same time, this benchmark seems to be more like, okay, we'll show you an environment, panning the camera around, some enemies chilling in the background. So yeah, also I'm seeing artifacts in the water, but that's probably because of the upscaling. We're doing 66% 800p, so kind of makes sense, but we're staying over 30 FPS with pretty decent visuals. So personally, I was expecting way worse performance than this, especially considering how the game looks. I can see, yeah, the upscaling artifacts. But let's be honest here, nothing is going on. It's just people walking around, moving the camera around the environment. Again, as a first impression, I think this is good news for Wukong. That means, as I said, that the developers are confident on the performance. And second, that they're willing to let people try their engine. Well, this is Unreal Engine 5. But before purchasing, I love having this as more of an informed decision. The VRAM seems to be fine. We're over 30 FPS. Of course, as soon as you get into combat or boss fights, effects on screen, multiple enemies, it's probably going to be much more demanding than this. So we'll see as soon as the game comes out. Obviously, I'm going to be checking it out. But first impressions are pretty good. I was personally expecting much worse performance, considering how good this game looks. So with those settings, quality TSR, medium BeCreatus anti-aliasing, shadows and textures, the rest on low at 800p, without frame generation and DX12 on. I don't know, there was a DX11 build. If that happens, we'll try it on the full game. Average of 35, minimum of 26, maximum 46. So yeah, so far so good. This is a good first impression, I would say. Of course, again, the final game will probably be more demanding because there will be actual action happening on screen. So let's jump over to the ROG Ally and check it out over there. Alright, so on the ROG Ally, we're doing 1080p. And of course, on 30 watts manually. So 1080p, when it comes to settings, I'm using, again, 65, 66 on TSR, which is like quality TSR to say it in some way. The game recommends medium settings, but personally I'll just lower the global illumination to low. This seems to be the most demanding option. So let's run it. Again, this is a preliminary test. The game is coming out next week. And in this benchmark tool really is just the classic, okay, we're going to pan the camera around the game's world. Yeah, there we go. So again, 1080p, 66% resolution, which is quality TSR. And the game is over 30 FPS at 1080p at 30 watts. So if you're playing with turbo mode, to say it in some way, you should be above 30 FPS. But it highly depends, again, what's going on in the game. The benchmark tool is nice to have, again, props to the developers. But I wish they put, I don't know, maybe the monkey doing the boss fight. Maybe Wukong throwing some magical fire to a boss or something. That would have been a better stress test in my opinion. This is a little bit too little. Probably when walking around you get performance similar to this. But I'm happy that this exists. That means that more people can know if the game will run on their PCs before release. I also noticed that the game talks about DX12. You can actually force DX11 by adding -DX11 on the game launch options. But when it compiles the shaders, it doesn't compile all of them. So on DX11 you actually get stutters. On DX12 it's been smooth so far. VRAM usage is under control. We are at 5 gigabytes on the VRAM side, assigned to the ROG Ally. So yeah, the game seems to be behaving just fine. On, again, 30 watts, 1080p. Again, 1080p as a base resolution, 66% 1080p, because we're using quality TSR. But the game still looks pretty damn good, at least in my opinion. Especially on the smaller screen. On the smaller screen, you can actually, you don't notice as much when the resolution is dropped. Remember, at 7 inches we have 1080p, so at 66% resolution I think is more than enough. The game looks great, and it's in the 30s. It's probably going to be in the low 30s when you're fighting something. But again, first preliminary test, we'll see what happens in the future. But as of right now, that seems to be it. Let's try it at 18 watts to see more or less what to expect. So now 18 watts, and for those 18 watts I'm doing actually 900p. We gotta do some sacrifices when lowering the wattage. 67% again, like before, TSR, so quality TSR at 900p now. Same settings as before, everything on medium, but global illumination on low. This is a huge performance hog. So let's get into it right away. Alright, so now we're doing 18 watts, which is basically how I would play if I was doing handheld. Just because of the battery life, you get like 90 minutes of battery, which in ROG Ally standards is long battery life. I know. Ridiculous. If you have the Ally X, of course you can have way longer battery than this. So I'm trying to put a realistic scenario over here. And at 900p with quality TSR and the same settings as before, we're getting very similar performance to 1080p at 30 watts, although we're closer to the lower 30s right now. Yeah, so maybe a little bit lower on the internal resolution, or you can crank it up to 20 watts to compensate, but you get less battery life. That's the drawback, of course. But if you had a couple extra watts, I think it would be perfect, considering this is a high-end UE5 game. But still, first impressions are pretty damn good when it comes to the benchmark. And I don't have anything else to add. I said everything I needed to say. It runs on Steam Deck with, of course, lower resolution and lower settings. It runs on the ROG Ally on both modes, 30 watts and 18 watts to have better battery life. And we'll see once the game comes out how it actually performs when there is something going on screen. And by something I mean combat and all that good stuff, things that you actually do in the game. But as a first impression, I think this is pretty good. I'm super impressed. Great job to the developers, props to them for making this available a week before the game comes out. If you're interested, go to the Wukong page or look it up on Steam. It'll show up as an extra tool that you can download. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did taking a first look at this. I'm super excited for this game to come out. So I'll see you next week with it, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys, thanks for watching.